Hello and welcome to the Orchid Quick Start Guide. My name's Tom and I'm going to be talking you through the key features of Orchid, giving a brief overview of everything you need to get started quickly. Before I get into the technical things, a quick overview of what's in the box. We have the Orchid device. We have a quick start guide, which is just a text version of what I'm doing now. We have a 4 chords notebook, so you can write down your chord progressions. And we have a technical compliance statement. The first thing I highly recommend you do if you've just got your Orchid is to charge it. Orchid will take any USB charger plugged into a wall socket. I recommend a fast charger. It could be from your mobile phone, it could be from a laptop. If it's USB-C, it'll charge the Orchid. Fast charging is very quick. It takes around an hour to get to a full charge and your Orchid will last for many hours. I highly recommend you update the firmware. There's already been some updates since shipping and we're updating this regularly. These fix bugs and introduce new features, so some things I'll be talking about in this quick start guide may not even be relevant to the version that you're currently running. So do this first. Step 1 is to visit firmware.telepathicinstruments.com. Second step is once the website is loaded, plug your Orchid into your computer via USB. Third step is you'll get a prompt on the website asking you to allow web MIDI, and you want to allow this so the web browser can talk to Orchid. Step 4 is to go into the options menu on Orchid and select firmware update until you see the QR code. And the final step, once it says your Orchid is connected, simply click update and let it do its thing. Depending on the size of the update and what's included, it could take a while, so make sure you don't navigate away from the page or tab. Don't shut it down, don't disrupt the internet, just let Orchid do its thing while it updates. Okay, let's power it on. Hold the power button for half a second, you'll see the logo and a short boot sequence, and we're ready to go. So the main controls include 9 rotary encoders across the front panel. These are also push buttons as well, so they act as buttons. We have an OLED display in the middle. We have 8 buttons on the left-hand side for choosing your chords, a single octave keyboard on the right, a chord voicing dial, and a bass voicing dial in the middle. So let's quickly make a chord so we can hear sound while exploring the features. I'm going to hold down the major button, which is MAJ, and I'm going to push C, which is the leftmost button on the keyboard. You can now hear a C major being played. Now let's adjust it to a comfortable volume. I'm going to use the volume dial here on the right. You can simply turn this and go from 0 to 99. I'm just going to choose 80. This also controls the output from the auxiliary, so it can come from the speakers or the auxiliary. The volume dial also acts as a quick battery check. You just push it once and it will display your current battery level. The leftmost dial is the sound dial, and this browses through a selection of sounds that have been carefully crafted for Orchid. Sounds aren't necessarily presets, so to speak, but a collection of a preset, a performance mode, and an effects. So a performance mode is something like an arpeggiator or a sequence of notes, and effects adds effects like reverb and delay to the sound. You can scroll through the sounds and find one you like. I'm going to keep playing that C key. You'll notice that the keys are velocity sensitive as well, so that means they respond differently how hard you touch them. A good example is if I go back to this number 1 preset, you can hear this. So let's talk about the core chord functionality of Orchid. The top 4 buttons are our chord type buttons. We have dim for diminished, which is tense and dramatic. We have min for minor, which is kind of melancholic or dark. We have maj for major, which is bright and happy. And we have sus for suspended. It's kind of unstable and open-ended. It goes well into the major. These are your 4 main chord types, and all of your chords are going to be based off these core 4. However, through adding on the chord extensions using these bottom 4 buttons, we can create much more complex chords and completely change the mood. We can do this by holding down the chord type and then a chord extension button. For example, I'm going to hold down the major button, and I'm also going to hold down the major 7 chord modifier button, which is M7. Now listen to the C major. This is without. This is with. We're now getting a C major 7 chord. You can have various combinations and you can stack chord extensions. Each chord has a different feeling and a different mood, which is probably subjective to you. So for me, a major 7 sounds kind of jazzy and sophisticated. A minor 7 sounds more soulful. And a diminished 7 sounds really, really tense. If you're feeling brave, you can try all of the extension buttons at once. And you can kind of remove some and just kind of find what you like that way, or you can just hold one down and add a few to find some good flavor. The chord voicing dial is an important feature of Orchid and helps determine how the notes of the chord are played. You can think of chord voicing like an inversion, so it'll take a note from the bottom and put it up to the top an octave higher, or it will take a note from up the top and put it down the bottom an octave lower. The more you scroll the voicing, the more notes it will take and replace an octave higher or lower. So this allows you to move around the spectrum of the frequency of the human hearing range. And you can do this very quickly if you like. So I'm going to play my C major, and I'm going to move my voicing dial. You'll see each time it re-triggers when a voicing gets moved. So just to reiterate, with C, we're getting C, E, and G. If I move my inversion up, it's going to take that bottom C and move it up to the top, and then the E up to the top, and then the G up to the top. They're just the same notes, they just go with a different voicing. If I go in the opposite direction, we can take the C and move it down, and then the G and move it down, and then the E and move it down. They're all the same notes, just different octaves. Performance modes are Orchid's way of adding movement and time to the chords that you create. We have various performance modes available, but the most recognizable one is the arpeggiator. The arpeggiator will take notes generated by the chords and not just play them all at once, but it will stagger them out over time, one by one, creating individual notes in a nice looping pattern. So to use a performance mode, we're going to push the performance dial to bring up the menu. We're going to scroll to the desired one we want, like arpeggiate. I'm going to push it to select it. Then I'm going to turn the performance dial again to choose a specific parameter of that performance mode. In this case, it's what type we want. And I'm going to choose 16 up. Then I'm going to push it one more time to lock it in. So now this performance mode is on. And let's play that C again. I'm going to do a C major 7 like before. Each performance mode has its own parameters that you can adjust. So with the arpeggiator, you'll see that I selected what shape that I wanted. We've got up, down, and up and down, and we can do 16th notes or 8 notes, which is different timing. Let's choose a different one though. I'm going to go with strum, and strum will separate the notes out like you're playing them on a guitar, but it won't loop them. So I'm going to choose strum, and now I'm going to move this up and play my C. We can make this shorter if we bring this down. Let's try another one. Let's go for pattern. So pattern will play a complex sequence over and over. It's almost like melodies, which can include 2 or 3 notes at the same time. So let's choose a pattern, maybe number 8. Let's get the voicing in there. Let's try one more pattern. Now I want to quickly jump over to the BPM dial here because some things on Orchid rely on a global BPM, like arpeggiator or pattern mode, even the delay time, it will adhere to a global BPM that we specify. This is the speed at which things happen, and we can quickly change this just by moving the dial. So I'm going to play that pattern again, and I'm going to bring this up. Let's make it really fast. Let's choose a different pattern. And let's bring the BPM really slow. So let's talk about effects. Effects are things that we can add to change the character of the current sound. We can fill things out, or we can create some sort of interesting variations on it. So like performance mode, we can choose different things. each sound has 3 effects you can change. There will always be a reverb and then 2 other effects based on the type of sound. To select these, I'm going to push the effects dial to see the available effects, and we can scroll through them. You'll see this one, we have reverb, phaser, and chorus. So let's just choose reverb. I'm going to push this, and let's bring it up to the max. I'm also going to go into performance mode and turn performance mode off, or turn pattern mode off. So you can hear that reverb is really at its max now. It's a full, lush kind of sound. It really spaces things out. If I turn it down, we get none. Let's have a listen to the phaser. That's with none. This is with max. Kind of creates that weird 70s psychedelic rock swirling effect. Both effects mode and performance modes can be locked if you find a combination you like. You can do this by holding down the button until the LED turns on. So I'm going to go back and choose arpeggiate, like so. And I'm going to turn my effects to, I don't know, let's just choose something we like. Maybe there. That sounds good. Now I'm going to lock them. I'm going to hold down perform until the LED comes on. I'm going to hold down effects until the LED comes on. And now we can move the sound dial and it will store those 2 settings. So let's move through different sounds. And to turn them off, we just hold them down. Key mode allows you to harmonically quantize notes to a particular key. When you select the key and push the key dial to turn it on, every note inside the chords generated will be within that key. It's like it snaps all the notes for you so you don't play something out of place. So while key mode is on, I turned it on by pressing it. You can also override this with the left-hand buttons. But let me just play some chords now with just my right hand. I'll turn off performance mode arpeggiate. So everything is sticking to the key of C major. Again, we can bypass this by using our left hand, but if I let go, we're back into the key mode. You'll also notice that it's displayed at the top of the screen here. If you hold down key mode and turn it, you can transpose the entire output of Orchid in semitone increments. This is handy if you have figured out a chord progression that you like, but you need to match the pitch range of a singer or another instrument. You'll also notice it displays up the top here when we have transpose active. Orchid has a separate bass engine with a special set of bass sounds. When we turn the bass sound on by clicking the bass dial, it enables the engine and creates a bass note using the root or the first note of the chord, but lower. It gives the chords more depth, almost like they have a bass accompaniment. We can browse through the bass sounds by turning the bass dial. We can also turn the bass volume up by pushing and turning the volume. The bass also has some custom options you can access by holding down the bass dial. Have a play around with some of these. The bass voicing dial adds a split in the keyboard and moves notes below that split or above that split, down or up. Loop mode is a very rich feature of Orchid, so it requires its own video, but I'm going to give you the basics. By turning the dial, we enter the loop mode waiting room. You should hear a metronome. If you don't hear it, push the BPM to turn it off or on again. You can also adjust the speed if you like. Let's make it a bit slower. I'm going to change the tempo here to 100. So I'm going to go into the waiting room here. We can choose free, which will start recording immediately and stop when you tell it to, or you can choose from predefined bars. I'm going to choose 2 bars here, and I'm going to push the loop mode to start recording. We'll get a 4-beat countdown with a different metronome sound. Then anything we play within 2 bars is going to be looped. Let's try it. So I didn't like that, so I'm going to go pause and I'm going to go clear, and now we're ready to do it again. Let's go 2 bars, push it to count in. Very good. Now I'm going to choose overdub. When I choose overdub and push it, we're now listening to anything else and we're creating a new layer. So I'm going to bring the voicing up a bit. Excellent. I'm going to stop that. Let's say I didn't like it. I can go and undo that and go back to the original. Finally, I want to talk to you about the options dial. The options dial can change various system variables and how the Orchid plays. Let's go through these really quickly. First, we have battery to just show us how much battery level we've got. We've got view mode. This gives us a selection of different views we can see on the screen. I've been using chord mode, which just displays the chords in nice big letters. But one I really like is geek out mode. This shows a keyboard, the chord, plus all the notes in the chord. I like having all the information at once. We have audio output. This chooses where the audio goes. So we have auto. This means it's the speakers if nothing's plugged in, or if we plug something in, it's going out the cable. We can also choose it ourselves. So we could choose headphones, speakers, or both. If you want the output from the speakers and the auxiliary going at the same time, you can do that. The next one is MIDI channels. So Orchid outputs 3 different MIDI channels. We have one for performance, one for bass, and one for chord. So performance is arpeggiator notes, or pattern notes. Bass is everything that's happening in the bass channel, and chord is the raw chord. So even though you could be playing an arpeggiator on the Orchid, you can still send the raw chord information out one channel, the bass out another, and the arpeggiated notes out another one. And if you choose to do so, you can change which channel you want those to go. Next up, we have play style. This changes the behavior of how the keyboard works when you're holding down chord buttons and vice versa. So at the moment, the play style is set to simple mode. That means if I play major and push C and let go and push minor, nothing happens. However, if I change the play style to say advanced and I push C, major, let go and push minor, we get the C minor. This is up to you and what you like. Next up, we have single notes. What this does is it changes the keyboard from being a full octave from C all the way up to B to a split version like with the bass voicing. So at the moment, we just get all the semitones going up, but let's go into single notes and change it to split. Now the voicing is going to control where the split point is. Let's bring it down a notch. A few more. Let's bring it all the way up. So again, this is up to you and how you like your single notes to be played. Scrolling on down, we have velocity sensitivity. This just turns the velocity on or off. Remember, velocity is how hard you hit a key. It changes the sound. Next up is extension addition. So this determines what happens when you add an extension mid-chord. The options we have for us are add note or play chord. So I'm going to choose add note, play a C, and push the major 7. Now let's go to play chord instead. You'll hear we get the whole chord played instead of just the extension. We have version if you want to know what version of Orchid you're running. I'm on 3.05. And finally, we have upgrade firmware. This brings up a QR code. You can scan this or just go to firmware.telepathicinstruments.com to upgrade your firmware using the website. And again, I highly recommend you update your firmware after watching this video. Do it right now. Do it before you get started with Orchid. You'll get the best user experience. Keep an eye on our social media and website. We'll be releasing updates frequently, new sounds, new features, all kinds of new things, fun patterns, fun sequences, and bug fixes based on your feedback. You can share your feedback in the garden. The link will be in the description. We really want to encourage users to let us know what you think. Let us know if you find something that could be improved, if you want a new feature. We're here, we're listening. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing what you do with your Orchid.